Home, the goal.
He could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Yo, Canada and the rest of the world. You're listening to the Huckin Eh podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo and Danie from Toronto, Ontario.
And I'm Danie Proby from Vancouver, BC, and together we are your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian and a little bit international ultimate. So, I'm really sad, but before we kind of dive into anything like that, any of the sadness, Theo, tell me something good that's happening in your world.
So, first of all, we're continuing the trend of the new year, new you, so got to keep getting better. Maybe you have a goal or something that you're working towards. Don't want to call it resolutions, but goals or some thing that you're trying to achieve. So hopefully you're doing something like that in the new year. But for me, I will say I have to shout out one of our listeners, Carlos. Oh, I hope I get this last name right. Is it Bouts? Bouts. Do you remember?
No.
Bouts. We're going Bouts. Entered his college football pool, and guess who came out finishing tied for first? Chaboy right here, making some cash and showing off his college football knowledge. So I'm very happy about that. At the time of this recording, the Buffalo Bills just won on the weekend. Big win. So my good news, Danny's usually related around sports and my sports fandom, as you can probably tell. So that's my perspective. Winning some money watching sports and picking the right teams is always a good time, at least for me. So for you, I know it's a bit of, we're going to get to this, folks, but mix of sadness. But why don't you sprinkle in some happy stuff before we get to the sad stuff?
Yeah, so some of the good stuff that's happening is that a lot of our programs for Elevate actually started this past weekend. And so it's just the way that things have been going the last couple of years, seeing 20, 30 kids on a field, running around, laughing, playing Frisbee is literally the best medicine for feeling sad or feeling low about things being canceled or shut down or whatever. So it was a really fulfilling weekend. And I just love juniors. If any of my kiddos are listening to this, you're the best. You make me smile. So in other good news, sometimes I get invited to this legendary Goaltimate group. And it's all these current and past open player legends that play. And sometimes they need numbers. And I'm like, ooh, I'll play because I like Ultimate. It's fun. And I learn a lot when I'm there. It's very different. And I think I might have officially been invited to the actual invitation list, which means I've been promoted to open Goaltimate member status. And so it's honestly the biggest honor. And shout out to Jeff Bell if you're listening to this. You are the legend-iest legend of Ultimate. So appreciate it. Final thing for me. I invested, well, I'm doing a demo for 2 weeks, but I invested in a Peloton. And it is the best workout I've ever had. When I was playing Goalty, I didn't feel anything. Next to these Peloton workouts, nothing is difficult. And so I was like, running on the beach, it's going to be no problems. My legs are ready. So yeah. Is that a little foreshadowing for the news section? Should we just head over there and wreak sadness upon everybody?
Yeah, let's head to the news. I'm glad that new year, new you invested in a Peloton. So you're trying to do that. I'll say my new year, new you is, Theo, let's stop hitting that snooze button. I know that's a silly thing that some people might be thinking about, but I listen to a lot of self-help, personal growth podcasts. And one of the big things is start off your morning right. And that starts off with not hitting the snooze button. So I'm hit and miss sometimes with it. But now you know, Huckin Eh audience, Theo, stop hitting the snooze button. Danie, keep hitting the Peloton. There we go.
Yes, will do. All right, let's go to the news.
We now have breaking news.
Okay, news time. Theo, do you want to... I can't even say this first one, so I need you to rip the Band-Aid.
I'll say it. It is sad. More for you than it is for me because, I wasn't scheduled to go. But by now, by the time this has come out, you should know the news that Beach Worlds is no go. So very sad news. The people I feel for the most, we were talking about this off air, people like you, Danny, that have yet to, suit up with the red and white for the first time or maybe second time for some, and they're really excited, training all, summer, off season, quote unquote off season, or the winter, and then their hopes dashed by something called Omicron. Tough.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking in the main segment a lot about this with Brian Gisel from WFDF, so no need to super duper dwell on it, but I know the reason was teams were backing out. I think initially we were told, all the teams were like, yes, the event's happening. We've reached the right amount of teams to make the event viable. And we're like, yay, celebrating. People are booking flights. People were going to come to Vancouver for a training camp. Like, it's all set in motion. And then today was total green light, kind of I can't say blindside. Like, we know that nothing is for sure in these days. But after being told yes and then to be told no is kind of gutting. So for me, this is my 4th Team Canada opportunity. And I've gone to 0 events. I've got lots of jerseys, though. So there's that.
A consolation for the sad times there, Danny. And, like suiting up as in coaching, too, right? Because I know the next part of the news, you're going to talk a little bit about something related to your coaching.
Yeah, so 2 of the opportunities were playing. And then 2 of the opportunities, one was U20, one was U24 coaching. So in terms of coaching, my 5th opportunity, so I'm putting all my eggs in this basket that this event is going to run, is coaching juniors. So the U20 Worlds event was supposed to be in Dominican Republic, and I guess not enough teams were applying. Again, we'll talk about this probably in the main segment a little bit more, but the event has moved to Poland, so I think it's like a last-ditch effort to see if that event can run, so hopefully it does.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this before, Danny, but I'm very interested to see the development of juniors ultimate around the world, especially with, as we called, I believe you've said this, like the lost generation, like the last couple years of kids who haven't been able to play competitive juniors ultimate, especially on the world stage, but also here in Canada, at CUC. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the quote unquote next generation ultimate players.
Yes, definitely. And I mean, I know it's not, it's hard to feel sorry for yourself or hard to feel sorry that any of these things are happening. Like, we should be coming to expect them by now, but it's just been long enough that I just pray that these kids that have been kind of dealing with this for a lot of their adolescence will get something meaningful to look forward to train for, to experience. So I'm praying that event can happen. And speaking of things closing down, what does Ontario look like right now? Is it a wonderland?
Now you got the secret, folks. You know when we recorded this, but yes, it is a wonderland out there. I don't even know how high, to be honest. But lots of people were shoveling. If you're in the GTA, you know about the DVP and the Gardner, at least if you're from Toronto, and those were shut down at points. So yeah, it was we're locked down already, and then to further exacerbate that, you got lots of snow. But the news related to that is just, I know, I'm not going to name specific teams or programs, but I know different teams and programs were trying to do stuff in kind of the winter time, even if it's like quote unquote training camp or, trying to see who's going to go to tryouts and kind of get a feel for that. So a lot of those things have been canceled. We talked about last time about the Canadian Indoor Series being postponed, or I guess canceled, the one tournament that was supposed to be in January. So fingers crossed for an announcement coming up in about a week and a half, I would say late January. There'll be something related to if gyms can open and if training can start again. So we'll see what happens here in Ontario.
Yeah, I know that even some of my Quebec friends were trying to do practices and stuff, and because everything's indoors over there, it's just harder to kind of have these things run before things get into a little bit more control. So really hoping that we can all get back out in the field and play again. It's so important for mental health and literally that it's important for mental health. So I miss playing with all my friends, and I miss going to events, and we're all pretty tired of it. So is this like a sad podcast? Are we now like one of those podcasts that make people like cry and feel sad, or are we happy? What do you think?
I mean, I'm happy that we got a pretty like elite level guest here coming up. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, it is sad because, you just got to think about all the people that have been training, not even just in our sport, but just sports in general. You made a very good point about the mental health piece, and something that definitely is talked about and will continue to be talked about throughout the next few weeks and months. We know, at least on the Ontario University side, which I'm a part of with my work, Bell Let's Talk Day is a big thing that's coming up. So we'll definitely be sharing resources about that. And so if that's something you're interested in, you can definitely reach out to the Bell Let's Talk resources that are out there. Or, if you're in school, there are mental health resources out there from your university or college or high school. So definitely take advantage of those things as we try to get through it together, Danie. Come on.
We're all in this together. And speaking of together, we're going to join Brian Gisel in the next segment. He's eager to give us all the answers and to tell us all of the things that WFDF's been dealing with over the last year, 2 years, 3 years. I can't even imagine how hectic their Zoom meetings are with all those time zones and everything. So we're going to have a quick listen to a really, really sweet advertisement for our sponsor, VC.
This episode has been brought to you by VC Ultimate. VC Ultimate has been producing custom uniforms and performance apparel right here in Canada since 1998. VC's sublimated gear is made from 100% recycled FlexLight fabric, and design services and product samples are both free. Get your VC jersey today.
This is Quinn Snyder from Winnipeg General Strike, Team Canada, and the Minnesota Windchill, and you're listening to Huckin Eh, Ultiworld's newest podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our main event. We are blessed to have Brian Gisel. An easy way to remember how to pronounce his last name, he said, rhymes with whistle. And we love that in the sports world. So we have Brian here. Not only is he the GM for BC Ultimate, which was the board that I was a member of back in the day, like 2 months ago, but he's also the vice president of the board of WFDF or WFDF. So he's going to drop some sweet knowledge bombs on all of us. But first, Brian, I would love for you to introduce yourself, not just your board organizing career, but maybe a little bit about your ultimate or anything else you'd like to share with the group.
Great. Well, thanks, Danie. Great to be here. I first want to say off the top that I'm really happy to be on this podcast. Listen to it every time it comes out. But now you two are helping me with my dream of being the first person to be on every Ulti-World podcast. So this is the third one so far. It's going to be tough to pick up some of the other ones, but I've been on Eurozone and Deep Look, and now Huckin Eh. Love it. So happy to be here. I'm just continuing the march to get on all of them at some point. So if you're out there running, if people are running, laying out, or in the fields, want to get in touch with me, always happy to do a podcast. Ultimate. I'm getting to the point in my life where people stop believing that I actually play Ultimate or played. I don't play much anymore. I started playing in 1992. And did the pretty typical Ultimate as a cult or cultimate thing around Vancouver as the sport was really blowing up in the 90s, and played all over the place in Vancouver, toured everywhere, went to nationals more times than I know. I'll prop myself, 2-time champion of nationals, mixed division and masters, open division. Have played in 5 world championships.
Jealous.
Around the world. So happy with that. And I'll say 1-time world champion.
Oh.
Also in the mixed division. But that was way back in the day. So now, funny story. One of the people that I work with a lot in WFDF, at one of the last tournaments, I think it might've been Winnipeg, World Masters in Winnipeg. He said he wanted to go out and just throw a little bit with me because we'd been working together for a decade. He said he's never seen me throw a disc. he wasn't sure he believed that I actually played or not. So he went out and threw, but I proved it. I proved it there to him that I still can throw.
Still got it.
The throwing is fine. The back and the knees, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, Brian, is we got a legend here on the podcast. And we always, for the Huckin Eh audience, we're always trying to bring legends on. So living legend right here, Brian Gisel. We're going to get started ready. We're going to ease into the spicy questions kind of thing. Kind of want to just get a general overview of how the meetings have been. What has WFDF been up to in the past, let's say, year and a half over the pandemic? What's WFDF been up to? How many meetings are you doing?
A lot. It was an interesting question. Danie sent me that previously, and I hadn't really ever thought about it. Typically WFDF just, is boring administrative stuff, but, we have a board meeting every other month, and then we have an executive committee meeting every other month on the off month. So I'm doing that every month, and that's kind of the typical stuff. Plus, I'm part of the Ultimate Committee, which meets probably quarterly to talk about things as well. But then obviously in the last year, we've had medical meetings. I'm also part of I kind of do a fly on the wall, take part of the Athletes Commission meetings that happen. A lot of talk about COVID, and then a lot of talk specifically about events when I kind of get involved with the planning of events. So we have events, we have meetings with the LOCs at the different places, chatting about different items. And then, of course, this year as well, I've actually just set 2 meetings, one tomorrow, one the next day, with the World Games in Birmingham to talk about World Games, which I will also be at, and I'm looking forward to very, very much for this year. So lots of meetings, it seems, I'm involved in, and everybody at WFDF is involved in that. Obviously, being a worldwide organization, we've been reliant on Zoom much longer than when COVID's been in place, and it's tough sometimes when we do those world board meetings. When we're doing the full board meeting, I was thinking about it. We probably have at least 12 of the 24 time zones involved in those meetings, and that might be a low estimate. So I'm usually doing it at 6 a.m. My time, but then we've got people doing it at midnight, 2 a.m. out in Asia, and then middle of the day, dinner time. There's always people drinking wine when we're doing those events as well, because they're having dinner.
Is it you at 6 a.m. drinking wine?
I'm jealous because I'm trying to wake up. I'm just trying to stay awake.
Little Cabernet in the morning.
So. Yeah, I never get the late night ones. I never get the 6 p.m. meetings. So that's rough.
Well, speaking of the LSE, does that stand for Local Organizing Committee, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
Speaking about that, how much does WFDF kind of control the events versus the LOCs in the various locations, and whether they run or they don't run? I assume you kind of work in tandem, but if you could speak to that, that would, I think, be really useful.
Well, yeah, for sure. It's very much a partnership, and we pride ourselves on partnering with these organizing committees, and we always, it isn't that there's one cookie cutter way of doing it, because when we run into events and start working with LOCs, we always have ones that have different levels of experience. World Ultimate Club Championships, going back to Cincinnati this year, is being run by Dale and his group, who have run a ton of events, and beyond just having experience with WFDF stuff, they've had experience with a lot of different tournaments, and so we tend to be a little bit less involved with ones like that, but then we are also involved with other people who are maybe involved with their national federations in smaller countries, but haven't run huge events, and we'll tend to be a little bit more involved. But lately, obviously, when it comes to the idea of running events or not running events, it's very much collaborative. We always want to try to run events, but we're very cognizant of, we want to make sure, obviously, that people are safe. Number one, the concern of the safety of the athletes and the volunteers while they're at an event, and traveling to an event, and even in the run up to an event, of being able to train at a level that makes it safe for you to play at a world championship. So that's an important consideration. Budget is obviously an important consideration, and being able to make sure that all teams, all the event can run at least not a massive loss for the local organizing committee, and that's an important part as well. And that's those are decisions we take in tandem with the LOCs all the way along.
All right, Brian, we're gonna head to the more meatier questions now. Because Danny's got one, I got one. I'll ask you first about World Juniors. We talked about in the news segment, but people maybe they were expecting to go to the sunny beaches of Dominican Republic, but now they're going to go across the world to Poland. So what was the decision making behind that? Give us all the details, if you could, about that, about what happened there.
Yeah, so that's a great example of taking into account how the teams were responding to going to an event and working with an LOC. So, we're really motivated to have juniors happen. I think it's been tough on juniors more than any other age group this pandemic. We're losing a whole group of people that are really lost their chance to play at these events, and we're trying to minimize that as much as possible. Unfortunately, the location of the Dominican Republic and the cost of it versus Poland, both versus an Eastern European city, was significant, and we were not getting the teams interested. And we have to we definitely need to respond to what teams want to do. We were looking at not being able to run that tournament. It was quite honestly wasn't looking like it was going to be a viable event, that it wasn't going to be worthwhile for teams that could come to show up and play only 2 or 3 other opponents. However, as we were looking into, and we're always looking for options, as we were looking into this, we connected with the European Ultimate Federation, who are running their under 17 championship at the same time in Poland. And they made the suggestion that they had the field space, they had the organizational capacity to kind of pick up World Juniors to see if it would work there. And that's kind of the information that we needed, and the collaboration that we tend to do. And we were happy, again, for juniors, we didn't want to just straight up cancel it and lose another group. So we know it's a bit of a hardship. And of course, I was as well looking forward to going to the Dominican Republic as well. And I must say that Worklaw, this is where World Games was last time. I went to that event. It's an amazing city. Like, it is beautiful. I did not know that much about Poland before I went. And I was amazed at just the kind of old, Eastern European vibe that it was, the trolley cars, everything. It was gorgeous. I was really blown away, actually. So I'll say to anybody who's looking at going, it's not the Dominican Republic, but it's not, it's got its own thing going on. So what we've seen since we've made that move is a lot of teams, a lot of countries in Europe that weren't being able to come to the Dominican are able to start getting things together. And that tournament is looking a lot more, a lot more stable.
Please,
I know Danie is sitting there putting, yes, I know we've messed Danie up as much as anybody over the last 3 or 4 years.
I honestly feel like
the COVID.
I might have had more cancellations than almost anybody in the world.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I know I felt bad. I feel bad every time that
you do it.
We do
feels
that.
personal.
So, how this is going to affect Daniel? I know. This is how we're making decisions now.
There you go.
Appreciate it.
So that's we've been contacted by a number of teams. I was just talking with the Netherlands. I think was the last country I was talking to. Who they were not definitely coming to Dominican Republic, but are now putting a team together or teams together to come to Poland. So we're with the economies of scale of working with another event, the U17s, having it in Europe, having more countries obviously there. I think I'm very hopeful that event will go off well. It won't be as big as anybody wanted it to be, but that's the world we're living in now. It's difficult. So as much as we can, we want to try to make that happen.
So I don't know if you're allowed to say. Can you say how many teams were committed to Dominican versus at this current moment since the more recent release?
It was really hard to say because we hadn't really gotten to that point where we were asking for money, right? And we kind of see that when the rubber hits the road of asking for player fees and team fees, that's when you kind of really know. We were probably, I don't even want to know, like we were lower than we wanted. We were basically, there was 7, 8 open teams maybe, but then again, you lose a couple of those and suddenly it becomes a really small event. I think we were like 2 or 3 or 4 mixed teams, and then kind of in between that for women's as well. So we'd really like to see 8 solidly, but more than that, 10, 12 at least in the open in the women's division if possible. To see that. And juniors is something that I think we really, talking across the world to anybody who's, your podcast has a reach that's worldwide. And it's something that, juniors is something that I think we all need to continue to dedicate ourselves to growing. It's where the sport grows overall, but I think it's just a great way of spending your time and energy, especially in the smaller countries. And I know there's a lot of countries that have been really pushed back. They were kind of on the cusp of getting more and more juniors going. And I just hope to see that coming out of the pandemic. More than anything locally, we saw a lot of growth, junior club, high school, ultimate, all that's been stopped. 10 minutes before this call, I was on a call with BC School Sports and our collaboration team in terms of all the people around the different zones talking about BC School Sports, high school, ultimate coming back, happening in March, starting in March after spring break. And the energy was really great to see that, all the people around the province that are really like, let's do this, let's get this going. Actually, yeah, absolutely. Great. We have dates. They have booked fields for the championship, and they're talking about zone tournament dates, and everything's still, the only constant is change with the pandemic. But school sports locally is happening. I think my son has a basketball game tomorrow night. Great. So, okay. So that's where we're at. And I hope that's where everybody can be at around the world is getting back to that. And it's going to take some extra work and dedication in the junior space, I think, to get us back to even where we were. But I want to get back to beyond where we were. And I'd love to see juniors in 2024 and 2026 start to really grow and start to push, the size of under 24 tournaments. Having the 40, 50, 60 teams there. Mm-hmm. And I think that would be fantastic.
Well, that's tentatively good news. I can't take any good news as good news because we said this in the news section that we got a message in our beach team Slack that is like, there's enough teams, green light, we're going, book your flights. Oh, wait, psych. So, I mean, I had checked in with you and you did tell me that no one had made the official yes decision. It was just a decision that enough teams had registered at that point. So speaking of beach, I know USA Ultimate really wanted this event to happen. I know WFDF really wanted this event to happen, potentially because of Olympics and kind of seeing kind of the sport in action there. I personally wanted it to happen. So can you talk us through a little bit about that decision and kind of what switched and what changed?
Well, everybody wanted it to happen. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. And primarily everybody wanted it to happen because beach hasn't happened in a while. Mm-hmm. And this has been a tournament that was delayed already, pretty much already 2 times. And that was very much, I think because it was a delayed event, because it's happening in a year where it wouldn't have otherwise happened. And because we're also up against 2 very large club team tournaments happening in the summer. We never, we had interest from teams, and this kind of gets back to what my comment about juniors was, when you never really know until that the payments start coming in. And we were kind of in the November, December timeframe. We were in around 60 teams that were interested, and that's when I was, I was very keen to see this event happen. Yeah. And I felt like it was going to happen pre-Omicron for sure. But I think a lot of that demand was still a little soft. And then once we moved into January, teams started and players, I think, were prioritizing the summer events over this. And we started dropping down, and we ended up, we were hovering in the mid 30s for teams. And then the real couple, things was when we start getting down that low, we have a couple divisions that may have 5 teams in it. And then a team drops out or 2 teams drops out, but then that wipes out the whole division. So you can't really have a 3-team division at a world championship. So we were looking at that. And again, that one just became, we were paring it back and trying to do everything we could budget-wise to make it work. But it just became, we just became aware that we weren't going to be able to put on an event that people would come to and love as a world championship. And we kind of take a lot of pride at WFDF that world events should be a destination, a life affirming, I talk about this for years and years, and I do talk about the events that I've been to and the events that I organized as being great events that I loved going to. They shouldn't just be a weekend tournament that we try to do more. And we got to the point where we couldn't accomplish that with the budget that we were going to have. The organizers, and we worked very closely with them. And I know they've had, as much as everybody else, they've had a tough time. They've, recently canceled the beach event down there. They were aware that we were kind of heading in this division. And in the end, they were like, yes, we're upset. We wanted to do it, but we completely understand. And we agree that there was no going forward with this one. So again, it's tough. I'm hoping, I listened last week. I feel bad about this one too. I feel more bad about Danie getting impacted, but I think they were doing their 2022 predictions, and one of the predictions was no COVID cancellations in 2022. And I was listening to that as we were kind of making these final decisions about beach, and I was like, oops. So there's one wrong, I guess. So I hope there's no more. I'm going to go on and say, from a WFDF point of view, no more COVID cancellations in 2022. And I really want to stress that, like the World Ultimate Club Championships in Cincinnati and World Masters Ultimate Club Championships in Limerick, both of those events, we are seeing strong and consistent interest and demand for. We have collected team fees from teams. Both of those events, I think, are in the 120 team range. The player fees are being collected. I know our event manager has been working overtime these last couple of weeks and this week as well, pulling that stuff. We're not seeing the dropout. We're not seeing the concern. I think that's because those events are part of the regular calendar. People were kind of already assuming last year that they were going to happen. They planned for them. We are looking forward to 2 very large, very happy, very great events for WFDF, for the local organizing committees that are putting them on, for the host teams that are playing there, and for everybody who's coming from around the world to get back and have that great feeling that Danie and I had when we went to USAU finals in California. Said, I think that was so fun. She was playing, I was watching, but it was nice to be around Ultimate people again, playing Ultimate, watching Ultimate. I had so much fun. Also, the funnest I ever have with Ultimate tournaments is when I go and I don't really have anything I have to do, because it doesn't happen very often. And it was great. And it was fun just to be able to watch and see people enjoying the sport again. And that's what we want from a world championship. Now we want everybody to get back together, and in Cincinnati, or I guess in Limerick is the first one. That's going to be a huge reunion for everybody. It's Masters. Masters always, there's a lot of history there with the people who are playing, and we're looking forward to that. I personally love going to Masters now because I still find there's 5 or 6 or 7 players who came to Worlds in 1997 in Vancouver and say that they were there, they were playing, and they remember playing at that event, and now they're playing Masters or Grandmasters, and that's great. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to Cincinnati. It's going to be fantastic again. We'll play the finals outdoors this time, knock on wood.
That's pretty exciting.
It's looking like a great, it is, it's great. And honestly, the Cincinnati thing, I tell you, there was a lot of tough, hard decisions made at the end of that tournament in 2018. And that event was run so well. And the organizing crew and the volunteers did such a great job. I can't even, that was, I didn't say one of the best, but it was one of the best. It was maybe the best well-organized tournaments that I've ever been to.
Wow.
And I feel tragedy, not as much, the players, it's bad that they didn't get the finals. I feel really bad that the organizing crew didn't get that last Saturday, didn't get those 3 final games in the stadium with 2,000 people watching. And that's such a cathartic thing when you run an event, to have that last day and really enjoy it. You see people having a great time, and you have 3 great games, and everybody's having fun, and it ends, and you think, what a great tournament we did. And they did 6 great days and then got that pulled away from them right at the end. And they never got that finish. They never got the ending that they deserved to get. They had a couple wild games, having like 1,200 people indoors watching semifinals at 11 p.m., which was amazing in its own right. But I really want to make sure that they have that final day. I think it's going to be at Mason High School, that a lot of people have been to for different USAU events. I want to give that to them. I want to make sure they have that. And I hope we can all do a big standing ovation at the end of all of those games, not just for the players, but for the organizing team.
Yeah, Brian, you gave us a lot of info there. Do appreciate it. Because, that's one of the questions I had about World Clubs, World Masters. So thank you for answering that. But there's still one tournament that has not been accounted for. So, I got to ask you that one next. It's in the great state of Alabama, Birmingham. So what's the word on World Games? We know how the selection went, and, certain teams didn't get in. Have any teams dropped out? Would other teams that were close in the world rankings come in, or how would that work? And what's the organizing been like for that?
Much like the Cincinnati folk, I feel bad for the Birmingham group. I've been working with them now since 2018. Of course, they wanted to have their tournament last year. I was just down there in November for my second competition managers meeting, and they are stoked to bring this whole event, not just Ultimate, but this whole big event to the city of Birmingham. Birmingham, Alabama is another place that I would say, it's not the first place you would think of to go to for an Ultimate tournament. It's an amazing city. It's really cool. The campus where everybody's going to stay is great. Some of the stuff they've got planned for not just when you're playing, but the extracurricular activities look fantastic. The new stadium they just built, which wouldn't have been ready had the tournament gone in 2021. Fantastic. I've seen it now. That's beautiful. For opening and closing ceremonies. So that's all good. And as far as, we're working with all the teams that are qualified, and I'm actually started to look at, and no spoilers, I can't share this, we have to approve all the jerseys. So we're starting to get all the jerseys in, and we're approving the jerseys. And the first one I saw was from Team Germany. Sick. Looks great. Love it. Anybody can trade for a Team Germany jersey. That's to start with. So I'll have to do a ranking. We will do a ranking of jerseys at the end of it all. But it's a good, strong start from Germany. I'm going to say it looks really good. So we're looking forward to hosting all those teams down there. It won't be the biggest Ultimate tournament. Only 8 teams. But is it going to be the best Ultimate tournament ever in terms of talent? Certainly talent per team, the ratio is really high. I've listened to you all talk about who's going to make Team Canada. And of course, they talked a little bit about a deep look about who's going to make Team USA and who isn't going to make Team USA on their speculations. I'm never getting involved with any picking of any athletes onto any team ever. No, I will never do that. But I'm looking forward to watching you two do it. And I'm looking forward to that event. I love that event. I'm really looking forward to it. The format this time, 1 game a day. The teams are going to be stoked for that 1 game. Like, we play 4 games total. Everybody plays 1. You're going to be able to watch every single game right from the sideline, right where I love to watch Ultimate from. And I'm looking forward to everything they're bringing. Obviously, U.S. and Canada. Obviously, Colombia is going to be there. I said one of the last big tournament I went to, PAUC down in Sarasota in Florida. I was watching the Open Colombian team, and they were opening eyes at that event. And I was already at that point, I was going, we already know the Colombian women are, right at the top. I thought if this young crop of Colombian men open players comes along, watch out for them at World Games. So I think that's going to be great. And then everybody else, and seeing how, Germany, France, first time being there. Germany and UK have both been there, but chance to return. So looking forward to a great event.
Looking into the future, I know WFDF made an announcement about fours, so 4-on-4 Ultimate. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of that and a little bit about kind of what's going on with the Olympics and kind of that pathway, if you have any insight, which I know you do, share with us.
I was happy that the one thing I was doing down at Nationals there was working on some kind of stuff with fours, and I want to thank everybody who was involved with that, especially the team, Sprockets, who came out and did our showcase for us. The fours thing, it's something that USAU has looked at. It's kind of a nice format in terms of allowing smaller number of players to play in events. I think all the three of us are blessed by being in cities where there are not hundreds but thousands of Ultimate players, and it's not hard to get a 7-on-7 game going. But that's not true everywhere in the world. So, one of the reasons for fours is to allow that kind of flexibility, have people play. Everybody's played mini at practice at some point during their lives. So to kind of codify it a little bit. In terms of the Olympics, it made sense as a format possibility because, simply the athlete quota for the Olympics is always so tight, and it's tough to get new sports in particular team sports. We have a lot of benefits in terms of our resume. Being a truly mixed gender sport is beneficial for us. We're not a team sport that has to put in both a men's division and a women's division. We're putting in a single division. But in order for us to fit under some potential caps, is kind of allowed us to kind of get there and still play a game that we consider Ultimate without changing really any other rules. And that was kind of one of the things that was really important for us, is we didn't want to, we talked initially about, like, people were saying, well, should you put in a 2-point line, or should you put in a shot clock, or should you put in, a bunch of crazy stuff like this. But we weren't, right from the start, we wanted to put something in forward that was Ultimate. And 4-on-4 is not, it's not the most common form of Ultimate. It wasn't, when you look at it, people have been playing for a lot of time, it's a little bit different, but we haven't really changed many of the other rules, or we don't change the other rules of the sport really. And that's what's still there. And the Olympics is really a lot about, visibility and bringing our sport to a wider audience. And if we can get in under those rules, still with gender equity, still with no officials, and that's certainly what we're pushing. None of that stuff changes, and then that's something we want to do. What are the chances? We can just continue doing what we're doing and putting our best foot forward. There are so many hoops we want to get through, and we're going to try to get through as many as we can. And if they choose and select us to come in at some future date, then that'll be great. But that doesn't stop us from running all of our other events and doing things that we want to do. It's just a nice thing to do. And I think if we ever get there, I think it raises all ships. I think the visibility that gives us around the world, hopefully, helps every national federation, every local organization, every club team player from every town, big and small, around the world, be able to say, we're an Olympic sport. Help us grow. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of that's the long-term vision for it, for sure. So that's our goal there. WFDF's goal for the future, we're just close to putting out our call to bids for 2023 and 2024. And I know we're talking about World Games in 2022, but World Championships in 2024 is going to be qualifying for World Games in 2025. So this stuff comes around real fast. And I'll make another plea to everybody who's watching this around the world, from your audience of hundreds of thousands.
Absolutely.
Bid for for these
Definitely.
events, right? You want these events to be in your backyard or be closer to you. Bid for them, run them. Come and get in touch with WFDF when things are coming out. It doesn't have to be the World Championships. Under 24s being run, juniors again in 2024 being run. We have a continental like Pan Americans, Asian Oceanic, all African championships, things like that being run. There's availability for a lot of different events. And hey, Canada, there hasn't been a World Championship in Canada for a little while, like since 2018 now. So people in Toronto, in Montreal, in Vancouver, look at it. I'd love to see another event in Canada as well sometime in the future. So there we go. There's my pitch for wanting to grow the sport. Have a ton of people bid for these events, and I love going all over the world, but I love staying in Canada as well to see a championship. Theo's going to run one. He's going to put in a bid now.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but it's a call to action though for the rest of the Canadians out there listening. So do appreciate that. But Brian, quick question before I get into my last question that I have for you. I've always been a big proponent of the name. I think it's Ultimate Fours, Disc Fours. There's Disc Sevens, Disc Fours. I know Keith Rayner's talked about a possible name. So let's just say hypothetically, if it got to the Olympics, would it be called Ultimate? Would it be called Ultimate Fours, Disc Fours? Like, what would it be called?
I would say taking from the World Games is actually the overall sport discipline is called flying disc. So it's actually in the World Games it's called flying disc : ultimate. Opening the door for something like World Games : disc golf, which is something that we would love to see as well. So in terms of ultimate in the Olympics, I believe probably it would just end up being ultimate. Okay. Because there wouldn't be any need to define it against something else that's happening in the Olympics. So that's kind of where it usually comes down to is we would just call it ultimate. We'll see. Again, that's those. If we got to that point where we worried about the name, I'd be very happy because that would mean that was happening. So the name is a little farther down on the to-do list in terms of that. But we certainly would want to have the name Ultimate in there.
Yeah, I know. It was just kind of a silly question for me, Brian, because that some people want to know about the name. So, last question for me though is, you've talked a lot about a lot of things coming down. Is there anything you think you might have missed that you want to share? Any other initiatives or things coming down the pipe there for WFDF that you could tell the great Huckin Eh audience?
Oh God, we've covered a lot of stuff.
We have
everything I look at. I'm very focused on Ultimate, being a chair of the Ultimate Committee as well, and that's where I'm stepping. I will say that in terms of Ultimate, in terms of WFDF, there's a lot of exciting things going on, especially in the discipline of disc golf, which we chatted about. Right now, there's the competition happening for the World Games Athlete of the Year. And WFDF has an athlete there identified that I'd like everybody to go and vote for. You can kind of Google World Games Athlete of the Year. I think you should be able to vote for that. We're partnering with an online company to do an online kind of worldwide disc golf challenge as well. So that's something else that WFDF is doing. And we've kind of expanded and are growing the World Team Disc Golf Championships, which we're really happy with. There's kind of a space there. Obviously, there's a lot of disc golf tournaments and events that happen around the world, but being able to bring countries together is kind of what WFDF does, and creating this team disc golf championship. It started very small. It kind of got a little bigger. I was happy to go to Tallinn in Estonia for the last one, which again was a place that I never would have thought of going. If you have a chance to ever go to Tallinn, and I need to get kickbacks from tourism bureaus here because I'm bumping all these cities.
Yeah, you're a world traveler, Brian.
I spent a day in Tallinn walking around the old city. Amazing, great place. I guess everywhere I go, it's in summer though. Also, the weather is really good. So So that was really good, and we're kind of growing that. So I definitely say shout out to all the disc golfers out there. I know the sport is growing. We'd love to push to get that back in the World Games. It was a long time back. We really want to get that back in the World Games, and keep promoting that and keep working with our disc partners around the world in that discipline, because I think it's as we've seen over the pandemic, is a really accessible sport. People love it, and it's great for young and old like myself to go and not have to dive for a disc.
Now, I have a small question for you. I know that you wear many hats, and you're involved in a lot of things ultimate. Okay, so this is an aside. This is not my question, but there's some parents that I know in like the Elevate Ultimate world that have known me since Elevate started. And so instead of asking XYZ managers or their coaches, like I'll get a text message from a parent about something super obscure or whatever. And my reason for saying this is because whenever I want information about global ultimate events, I literally just email you, and I apologize because I'm sure it's like really annoying, and you're incredibly busy. So I appreciate you almost always answering my question. So this is related to my question, I promise. Okay, so when was the last time you got a good sleep?
You say I'm busy. It's funny you say that. I kind of knew where your question was going on that. You're strangely enough, you're not the only person who when they want to find something out about Ultimate drops me a text or an email. But I don't mind that. This is the community and the space that I love to be in, or I wouldn't be doing it. The WFDF job I do is a volunteer board position job. And they give me the opportunity to, as I say, travel all over the world, see some great cities, watch some fantastic Ultimate, and that's my payback for it, for sure. My job is also with Ultimate, growing and developing the sport locally in the province of British Columbia. And I love it. So I'm not going to complain about people dropping me a line and saying, "Oh, by the way, I heard that this or this was happening." And you say, like, sometimes, most of the time I get back to you. I've had emails from Danie sitting in my inbox staring at me that I have purposely not been getting back to because of such as the beach thing for every once in a while.
I wouldn't tell anyone.
But I know you wouldn't. But I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing either.
That's fair.
And I felt really bad about the beach thing, of course. And Jimmy, a friend of ours that nobody knows, but I'm going to drop his name anyways. Jimmy from the island, who we work with quite closely. Danie and I both work with, who is also on a beach team. And I texted him 5 minutes before this recording as well, just saying, and he knew. I kind of had told him, it's up in the air. Don't book your plane ticket.
Yeah.
But I was still hopeful. But then I kind of gave him the thing. So I get good sleep because here's your life lesson for the audience. I get good sleep because I'm working in somewhere that I love. And like they said, if your job is something you love, you don't work a day in your life. And that's definitely the space that I've gotten myself to. I work, hard or harder sometimes, although there were a lot of times over the last 2 years where nothing has been going on and I haven't had to, but I'm looking forward to those days when it's just crazy. And we've got 6 different tournaments coming up, and I feel bad about some of the events that I had been planning on going to this summer and not going to, but I'm still looking forward to Limerick. I'm looking forward to Cincinnati. I'm looking forward to Birmingham. I'm looking forward to Poland. I'm looking forward to wherever all those BC tournaments are going to be. And I'm never gonna get upset at people that send me an email. Sometimes I won't answer them, but I'll never be upset.
gm@bcultimate.com or .ca or something.
Oh, you're going to drop it now. People know that's the problem also. With
it's public info, no?
Decades. Yeah, for the decades that I've been involved is too many people know who I am. And I get a lot, it's not just BC, it's not just Canada. There's people probably in a few continents, in a number of continents that drop me a line from time to time. But I'm always happy to chat with them. And I can't wait to see them in person again. That would be nice.
Soon.
Yeah, so Brian, you covered a lot of topics, but it's not over, folks. You can head over to our subscriber only at the end of this episode and catch more Brian talking about a cool player story. So stay tuned for that. But Brian, Danny and I want to thank you for coming in. You shared a lot of info. I learned more about some of these world events, and even just the fact that you want more countries to put in bids for tournaments, the whole thing with LOCs and their role, and the desire for WFDF to continue to grow juniors. So I do appreciate all that you shared, Brian. We're hoping one day you can appear on Cinda Fields and laying it out so you can complete all the episodes there in the Ulti-World library. So this is a shout out to the other podcasts as well. You can check those out in the Ulti-World website there. But Brian, thank you for coming in. I know you and Dan are not too far away there out in Vancouver, so appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. Very happy to have been here.
Welcome back. You hit the outro section. Thank you for lasting if you have. Always appreciate that. So Danny, we heard a lot of information. I know, hopefully you're wiping away the tears a little bit there. It's a bit of a sad thing, but some positive news on the other end about World Clubs, World Games, World Masters. So hopefully good things coming for you and the rest of the Canadian and world people there on the horizon.
Yeah, I always like hearing from Brian, because if he doesn't feel positively about something, you can tell. Like he doesn't necessarily say, I don't think that this event is going to happen, but he's going to say something like, yeah, things are up in the air. And I can read between the lines now. And he didn't say that about these other events, but he did say that before about beach. So I'm putting my faith in him and in the world that we're going to turn the ship around in 2022. We're going to have some dope events. Juniors are going to hit the field. Senior division's going to hit the field. We're going to have some masters out there just like rolling around in Limerick. It's going to be great. And I'm going to stay positive, because that never hurts when it's wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, what do they say? Don't have any expectations, and then you won't get disappointed or something. But no, I do appreciate what you said, and just kind of reflecting on what Brian said there. The big thing I took away was the growth of juniors and wanting to grow, especially the U20 division. I think that's really cool to see that happen. So we're hoping to see that pay dividends. We talked about the lost generation earlier, so hoping to see that come to fruition in the next few years.
Absolutely. So if you like this episode and you found it interesting, useful, why don't you give it a little share to your network? We'd like to expand the Huckin Eh audience, even beyond our borders. So we talked a lot of international content. Like, this wasn't necessarily specific to Canada. So if you have any friends that play Frisbee overseas and you think that they would like the sweet, smooth sounds of our voices, give a little share. I think this is where you plug the socials so they can do that, right?
Yeah, Instagram, Huckin_A. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook, but, as the kids are, we're not on TikTok yet, but Instagram is, our main social channel. So check us out there. We're not going to tell you what's coming up in our next episode. We're going to keep you in suspense. We're going to do that this time. Subscriber only, make sure you hit that up as well. But, I appreciate you staying on for the whole episode. Lots of good info. And, we're fingers crossed for some world events, Danny.
And toes. All my toes are crossed, too.
Hey, this is Dom Ryu from Stella Ultimate in Ottawa, Ontario. You are listening to the Huckin Eh podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.